Oh yeah, lightweight baby, lightweight baby. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about heavy metals. And I'm not referring to this kind of heavy metal. I'm referring to the heavy metals that can absolutely weigh you down, but are also poised to destroy your freaking health. So the important thing to understand about heavy metals is that this is a very broad topic, and it's going to be pretty much impossible to cover all aspects of this in this single video because it'll end up making the video very, very long. So to keep it short, I created a free resource, and that's going to be in the description below. All right, so go down there, download a copy of that. It's going to have all the information from this video in there, as well as a bunch of other stuff about heavy metals, to include all the different kinds of heavy metals, symptoms that you might experience if you think you might have heavy metal toxicity, as well as a quick step-by-step guide on how exactly to detox from heavy metals. And that's all the stuff we're going to talk about in this video. But instead of diving deep into all the different kinds of heavy metals, we're just going to talk about the 6 most common heavy metals that we're often exposed to in our daily lives. So to kick this off, what exactly are heavy metals? Well, there's 2 different kinds. There are essential heavy metals and there are non-essential heavy metals. When you think essential, think of things like iron, copper, selenium. Those are essential heavy metals. The key with those is that it's all about balance. We can't have too much and we can't have too little. If we reach that state of balance and homeostasis, then everything's good to go. But if we get too high or too low, it can become very problematic. When we talk about non-essential heavy metals, there are 6 we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, aluminum, and nickel. And nickel is actually an essential heavy metal, but scientists don't really fully understand the role that it plays in our body. We just have to have very, very small amounts of it. But the reason I'm including that in this discussion is because nickel toxicity is actually one of the more common types of toxicity that humans can experience. And once we start talking about this, you're going to understand why that is. So the important thing to understand about heavy metals is that they're bioaccumulative. So that means that they build up in your body over time through repeated exposure. And the worst part about this is that heavy metals have a half-life of like 25 to 30 years before your body can actually eliminate them from your body. So, and that's assuming that you're not constantly being inundated with more heavy metals. So if you were to stop consuming heavy metals today or stop being exposed to them, it could take 25 to 30 years to get that stuff out of your body. And heavy metal toxicity occurs when too much accumulates in your body, and it basically becomes too much of a burden for your body to deal with, and you develop heavy metal toxicity, which can wreak absolute freaking havoc on your overall health. And I'm pretty confident that whenever I was dealing with all the health issues I was dealing with, I had some form of heavy metal toxicity. And the reason I think that is because when I started detoxing from heavy metals, I felt dramatically better. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that there was probably something going on there. And even worse still is that a lot of us, most of us, are exposed to heavy metals on a day-to-day basis. And that is not a good thing because, like I mentioned, they're bioaccumulative. So every single time we consume toxic food or toxic water, or we're exposed to environmental toxins that have heavy metals in there, it's building up in our body. And I'm convinced that that's one of the big reasons why people's health is in the tank, because there's a lot of people that probably have underlying heavy metal toxicity and just don't even realize it. And the stuff heavy metal toxicity can lead to is horrific, okay? We're talking heavy metals, number one, they're endocrine disruptors. So they can affect metabolic function, hormones, you know, they're actually neurotoxins, most of them. So that can affect your brain, your mood, your behavior, your cognitive function. It can lead to muscle atrophy. It can lead to cancers, diabetes, weight gain. All this stuff can be traced back to heavy metal toxicity. And it can even lead to things like infertility. So really there's nothing in the body that can't be affected by this. And in my case in particular, I think, you know, heavy metal exposure or heavy metal toxicity probably led to my immune system basically being a complete wreck, which opened the door to parasites, candida, fungus, yeast infections, and essentially my health spiraling out of control. And I can't say that that was the number one factor, but I definitely think it was a contributing factor. And I think for a lot of people, that's probably the case. All right, so that's all fine and dandy, and it sounds absolutely horrible, right? So how in the world are we exposed to heavy metals? Great question. Let's dive into that. So we're exposed to heavy metals through, I would say more often than not, it's food and water. Okay, so most of the food that we consume nowadays is hyper-processed junk. I think that's pretty apparent. 70% or better of most people's diets is hyper-processed food. That's not a good thing because most hyper-processed food is very little meat, but is also very high in grains and seed oils. You might as well say the vast majority of the American population is almost plant-based. They're eating a plant-based diet with a little bit of meat. The average American consumes like 2.5 ounces of red meat a day. So it's coming from grains, and grains are notoriously high in heavy metals. So specifically arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. Things like rice, wheat, oats, even soy. All these things are very high in heavy metals. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, it's just the nature of the beast. The plants uptake heavy metals from the soil. It goes into the grain, we consume the grain, and it builds up in our body over time and eventually can wreck our health. Another big reason for that is because soil is so nutrient depleted these days that they have to douse the soil in synthetic fertilizers. And it's recently come out that synthetic fertilizers are very high in PFAs, which are forever chemicals, but also heavy metals. So when that stuff is sprayed on the soil, even more gets uptake into the plant and we consume it and it makes us sick. So food is a big one. So that's basically anything that's grain or grain based. And like I said, prepackaged goods, hyper-processed food, pretty much anything that comes in a package that isn't meat probably has high levels of heavy metals in there. And one of the worst things even still is that baby formula and baby food is some of the highest in heavy metals. And that is horrible. And I'm just going to throw this out there. I know people will probably disagree with this and it will probably hurt some feelings, but I think baby formula is one of the most toxic things that's on grocery store shelves. And I wish they would come up with a better alternative because there's been a lot of testing done and you can go to my website and read the studies on this. But when they test baby formula, it is abnormally high in heavy metals. I'm talking lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, all the stuff I just mentioned. It's very high in that. And you know, the baby's consuming that. And children are extremely susceptible to heavy metal toxicity because they're so small. It doesn't take that much heavy metal for them to develop toxicity compared to a grown adult. So that's a really, really bad thing. And the same goes with our dogs. If you have a dog and you're a dog lover like me, dog food is very high in grains. It's very high in plant-based products. And those plant-based products come from the same place that ours come from. And they're extremely high in heavy metals. But even worse than that is that they allow higher levels of heavy metals in dog food. The quality standards are set much lower. So they can get away with having higher levels in there. And that just means that it's gonna build up in our dog's body faster, especially if our dog's eating kibble for every single meal, because for us, at least we have variation in there. But for our dogs, if they're eating that every single meal, every single day for their entire lives, it's no wonder they get sick and develop cancer and get diabetes and have weight gain and all that stuff at rates that are similar to us. Another major way that we're exposed to heavy metals is our drinking water, especially tap water. It is completely full of all the heavy metals I'm talking about in this video. Mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, all that stuff is in our drinking water. And you know, when we consume that, it's building up in our body and it's going to destroy our health in a very short order. And I think that played a major role in me getting sick as well, because when I moved into this house in 2009, up to the point where I got sick in 2017, I drank tap water every single day, and I was drinking like 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons a day. So I can't imagine the amount of toxins I was putting in my body, but it is not good. And another way that we can be exposed to heavy metals is from fish. So as a general rule of thumb, just always remember that the bigger the fish and the older the fish can get, the more heavy metals are likely going to be in that fish, and specifically things like mercury. All right, so king mackerel, tuna, swordfish, barracuda, and shark. Those are very, very common fish that grow to be very large, they get very old, and mercury content is going to be very high. So if you're going to eat fish on a carnivore diet or any kind of diet, I would opt for something like trout or salmon or sardines or something like that, because it's a smaller fish, the lifespan is not that long, and in general they're going to be much lower in heavy metals. Pretty much any kind of plant product that comes from big industry, so that includes organic and non-organic, is probably going to be pretty high in heavy metals because they use fertilizers on the soil In most cases, they're probably synthetic. They're not going to be natural fertilizers. And even though like organic stuff isn't sprayed with pesticides and herbicides for the most part, some of them are, that's a topic for a different discussion. The stuff they do spray on there could possibly have heavy metals in there, and it's still going to get absorbed into the plant. And if we eat those vegetables, we'll end up consuming that. So that includes all kinds of vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, and even herbs and spices. One way we're exposed to heavy metals that's often overlooked is dental work and dental accessories. So if you're old enough to have mercury fillings, I think it goes without saying that if you have mercury in your mouth, you're going to be absorbing that 24/7. And this is just another reason why I love science so much, because science is only right until it's wrong. Back in the day, they thought it was a fantastic idea to give people mercury fillings. And now, come to find out, it can cause mercury toxicity. So if you have mercury fillings and you think it could be causing problems for you, you might want to think about getting those removed and have them replaced with something that's not toxic. And when it comes to dental work, it could be everything from permanent retainers, braces, headgear, anything like that. Because the problem with those kinds of dental accessories is that they have nickel in there. And I've actually talked to my dentist about this, and she told me that absolutely, that after a certain amount of time, the nickel that's in braces and permanent retainers and stuff like that, it can leach out and you can absorb it in your body, and it could very quickly build up in your body and lead to nickel toxicity. And another one that kind of goes hand in hand with this that's often overlooked are orthopedic implants. So if you have, metal studs in your mouth because you have false teeth, or if you have bone replacements or screws or something like that, then there's a very good chance that if those are stainless steel, there's nickel content in those implants. And that can be problematic because that has also been shown to possibly leach out and cause nickel toxicity. So if you have something like that and your health is not in a good place, it might be something you want to look into, maybe even get tested for it, because there's a chance that it could be that the nickel or some other heavy metal is leaching out of that orthopedic implant and is building up in your body and is causing your health to deteriorate. And that's one of the worst parts about heavy metals, is that you don't necessarily have to consume them, because you can absorb heavy metals through your skin, especially things like lead and mercury. That gets absorbed into the skin very, very easily, and it can accumulate in your body very quickly if you're constantly being exposed to it through your skin. And another way people can get heavy metal toxicity, specifically nickel, is from jewelry. If you wear, rings, earrings, anything that's on your skin all the time, and it has nickel content or other forms of heavy metals, that can be absorbed in your skin and can cause heavy metal toxicity. So if you're wearing jewelry and it leaves, the green ring around your finger, or if you're getting green stains on your skin, that is a bad sign, because that's the metal leaching from the jewelry and basically being absorbed into your skin. That's not something you want. And while we're on the topic of nickel, nickel is the catalyst to hydrogenate oil. So when it comes to plant-based oils, things like margarine specifically, that's how they hydrogenate the oil so that it solidifies at room temperature, is they use nickel. So if you're consuming margarine, you're getting a daily dose of nickel, which is not a good thing. And speaking of oils, that is also something that is very, very high in heavy metals, and that is seed oils, because seed oils come from seeds. They come from soy, they come from, rapeseed, whatever seed it is. And those seeds and those vegetables are notoriously high in heavy metals. And when these oils are processed, the heavy metals aren't filtered out. So it's going directly into the oil. And every time we consume canola oil or soybean oil or whatever oil, we're getting a daily dose of heavy metals. So when we talk about seed oils and how bad they are for your health, that's something that's often overlooked, because a lot of people just want to focus on the fat and the kind of fat that it is that's probably not optimal for you, completely overlooking the fact that there's heavy metals in there, as well as aflatoxins and mycotoxins and all this really bad stuff that we don't want to be putting in our body. And believe it or not, you can actually get heavy metal toxicity from over-consuming organ meats. So liver, for example, is extremely high in copper. So if you consume liver every single day, there is a chance that you could get too much copper in your body, and that would lead to copper toxicity, which can then lead to iron overload and a bunch of other really negative health outcomes. So something else to be mindful of is stainless steel cookware. All right, so stainless steel pans. The problem with stainless steel is that most of it is 14% nickel, and the nickel can leach out and get into your food. And this is especially true for the really, really cheap stuff, So if you're gonna opt for stainless steel, I would go with something a little more high quality. Any kind of baking sheets and even utensils. All right, so just keep that in mind. Personally, I've never really had a problem with that, but I don't use stainless that much. I prefer cast iron, which is what I have right here. Now, some people will say that you can get iron and stuff from cast iron, but if you properly maintain your cast iron, the chance of you getting that is very, very slim. And it's also something I've never had a problem with. So I think of all the cookware out there, you know, stainless, cast iron versus nonstick, stainless and cast iron are the ways to go, but maybe just opt for the higher quality stuff so that the risk of nickel and stuff like that leaching into your food is going to be much less. And we can't forget about our pets. So stainless steel dog bowls, it's another big one. And just like with our cookware, this is around 14% nickel on average. But the problem is that whenever you buy really cheap stainless steel products, it could have other heavy metals in there, and there's a lot of studies to back that up. So if anything else, if you have a dog bowl that's very, very cheap, I would just swap it out for something a little more higher quality. And I've actually partnered with Basis Pets, which is a family-owned company, and they sell certified, toxin-free, heavy metal-free dog bowls. So I'll put their information in the description below if you want to check them out and swap your dog bowl out for something that's non-toxic. So another major way that we're exposed to lead is from environmental factors. All right, so if you have a house that's built prior to 1978, it could have lead paint. Lead paint is a big way that people used to get exposed to lead, and it could lead to lead toxicity. That's why when they used to say, you know, don't eat paint chips and stuff like that, it's because it was lead based and it could poison you. So, you know, I think if your house is that old and it's been painted over, it's probably okay as long as you're not constantly rubbing the walls or something like that. But if you do any kind of remodeling where you have to tear stuff out, just be mindful that if your house is built prior to 1978, there could be lead paint lurking beneath the paint that's painted over that. So it's just something to be very mindful of. You want to protect yourself by wearing a mask and just take the proper precautions and you should be fine. All right, so another big way that people can be exposed to lead, I'm down here in my dark old basement. All right, so lead pipes. If your house is built prior to 1986, there's a chance that you have lead pipes in your house. Now this is PEX, okay? It's not, I mean, it's better than lead, but it's still not good because it's plastic. So if I was drinking tap water, which I don't, because tap water is also extremely high in heavy metals, pretty much all the ones I'm talking about in this video. So avoid tap water at all costs. But if I was drinking tap water, I'm getting microplastics because this PEX right here is plastic, and especially for the hot line, it's going to be leaching out into the water. So if you have a house that was built prior to 1986, just be very mindful of the pipes that you have if you're drinking your water out of the tap, because it could have lead pipes. And the bad thing about that is that you don't even necessarily need to consume that water because lead can absorb in your skin. All right, so that's a really bad thing because every time you take a shower, you're essentially getting lead inside your body because it's being absorbed through your skin. So if you think you might have lead pipes, I would just have those inspected, or if you know how to inspect it yourself, you can actually take like a quarter and just kind of smash it into the pipe and see if it makes an indentation, because lead is very soft and it will indent the pipe. And then you'll know that you have lead pipes. So you want to remove that and go with like copper or an iron or PEX or something like that, so that you're not basically inundating yourself with lead every time you use your water. Another very unfortunate way we can be exposed to lead is through crock pots, all right? Because not all crock pots are certified lead-free. And what happens is that whenever you cook your food in some of these things that are not certified lead-free, if there's lead in here, then it leaches through the paint, out of the ceramic, and into your food. And that can be a very bad thing. So if you want to be mindful about this, you can get certified lead-free crock pots, and that would be the way to avoid it. And there's a lot of ways we can be exposed to aluminum. The big one is also going to be cookware. So this stuff right here that you bake in, this is aluminum, and this can leach out into your food and can accumulate in your body and could possibly cause Alzheimer's, which is not a good thing. Another big one is aluminum foil. You know, if you're using this for grilling or cooking in the oven or any kind of cooking, this could also leach into your food. It can accumulate in your brain, not a good thing. Another big one that's often overlooked is non-stick pans. Okay, so this is a copper non-stick pan. It's actually ceramic, but you can tell this pan is aluminum. Okay, so if this coating starts to wear off, it's going to expose the aluminum underneath and it's going to leach into your food. Now, non-stick pans in general, I would say avoid pretty much all of them if you can, unless it's like ceramic or something like that. Because even though they did away with PFOAs, they replaced it with another toxic chemical that's just as bad. They did a whole movie about that, Black Waters. If you've ever seen that, Mark Ruffalo, I would watch that movie. It talks all about how DuPont made this non-stick coating and it poisoned like generations of people. All right, so this is really bad stuff. But again, talking about aluminum, it will leach out if this starts to wear off. And here's another example. This is another ceramic pan. If it starts to wear out, I would replace this pan because it is aluminum under there. And one more is if you have an Insta-pot, like this one right here, this is a hand-me-down that I was actually given. But the insert to this is non-stick. Now they do make these that are stainless steel, and that's what I would go with if I was to get one of these. I've actually never even used this, but you can actually see that there are certain spots down in here that are starting to wear off. And when that starts to wear off, number one, you're going to be consuming this non-stick coating. And like I mentioned, that is horrible for your health. You don't want to do that. But you're also going to have aluminum leaching into your food, which is not something you want. So again, if you can get an Insta-pot, I think they make this same exact model that I have here with the stainless insert. That's going to be the better option. So another way we can be exposed to aluminum is baking products. All right, this is Clabber Girl baking powder. I used to buy this stuff back before I knew any better, but reading the ingredients in here, it has sodium aluminum sulfate. So you probably don't want to consume this. So if you bake and use baking products, I would read the ingredients or get something that says certified aluminum free. Otherwise, you could be consuming aluminum, which is going to build up in your body and it's going to destroy your health over time. All right, so now that we know what to avoid, what the heck do we do to get heavy metals out of our body? Because if you're anything like me, I used to consume tons of grains and I used to consume tons of tuna and all these other things that were very high in heavy metals. And like I mentioned before, I am very confident that I had heavy metal toxicity. So I'll just run you through a few of the things I have on hand that I used to take to help rid myself of heavy metals. All right, so the first thing, dandelion root. Now you can go out in your yard and dig this stuff up. And I think it's kind of ironic that there's a campaign about killing dandelions, and there has been for a very long time. I mean, that's the whole reason glyphosate kind of hit the market, was because, oh, you have dandelions in your yard, here, just use this glyphosate, use this Roundup, and it'll kill dandelions. Dandelions are very powerful, especially the root, in, detoxing your body. Now this is a tea, this is traditional medicinals. And you have to be kind of careful with tea because some of the tea bags have been shown to have microplastics in there. So that's something to be very mindful of. But dandelion root, the way to go. Really helps to detox your body and get heavy metals out of your body. Something else that can be very beneficial and help get heavy metals out of your body is curcumin, so turmeric powder. I got this off Amazon. Now, if you're going to use turmeric, you should also use black pepper because it kind of activates the curcumin in this, and that's what will actually help detox your body. So just keep in mind to add some black pepper to this when you consume it. And black pepper can be slightly problematic for some people because it does have oxalates and stuff in there. But when it comes to, using this for a specific purpose and very strategically, I would say that those side effects are very warranted if it's going to allow you to get heavy metals out of your body, because that's going to be more important. Something else that can be very beneficial is peppermint. This is also tea. And again, it's in a tea bag. It could have microplastics in there, but this is organic. And I've had pretty good success with this. Peppermint is good for a lot of good things, and it also helps detox your body from heavy metals. Another one that's very powerful, and this is probably my second best favorite, is milk thistle. Milk thistle is extremely powerful at boosting glutathione in the liver, and it helps to detox your body. It can help pull heavy metals and stuff like that out of your body much faster than what your body would do normally. And I've gotten really, really good success from this. I've taken this for, off and on for a couple years, probably the first 2 or 3 years I was carnivore. And I saw very, very good success with this, not only from die-off when I was cleansing myself from parasites and candida and stuff like that, but also from getting heavy metals out of my body. It just made me feel better overall. and I think it really does reduce your toxic load by quite a bit. My personal favorite, and in my opinion the most powerful out of all these, is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. All right, this is a non-essential amino acid, and it is extremely powerful in detoxing heavy metals from your body. I mean, it can even pull stuff like graphene oxide out, which is very important for a myriad of reasons. But NAC, just like milk thistle, it boosts glutathione in the liver, opens up your detox pathways, and just helps rid a lot of bad stuff out of your body. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, it'd be really hard for me to talk about all the ways that you can detox and all the things that you can use to detox your body without making this super long. But make sure that you go down in the description and you download your free copy of the detox guide so that you know what to look out for, you learn how to detox yourself, and you can start living a sustainable, toxic-free lifestyle.